Hello, and thank you for joining for another installment of the Smittcamp Family Honors College Fireside Chat. Today, I am excited to be joined by Leonid Vydro. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here this morning.
So Leo's background is that he was born in Russia and moved to California as a toddler. After a few years in San Francisco, his family settled in Fresno, California. Leo stayed in Fresno through his schooling and his undergraduate degree, obtaining a BA with a double major in chemistry and biology through the Smittcamp Family Honors College at Fresno State. He then attended medical school at the Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee and returned to Fresno to complete his internal medicine training at UCSF-Fresno. He then did a fellowship in endocrinology at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and for family reasons, he worked for several years in Arizona and in New Jersey. He recently, in August 2024, returned to UCSF-Fresno as a faculty member. He sees patients at Inspire Health Medical Group, the Family Healthcare Network Clinic downtown, as well as Community Regional Medical Center, where he teaches students, residents, and fellows at all locations. His wife, Megan Determan, is a practicing OBGYN at Kaiser Fresno. They have 2 toddlers and 1 Yorkshire terrier. So welcome, Leo. So excited to have you. And thank you for taking some time today to share about your background. The Honors College application process is very rigorous and competitive. Can you share a little bit about your activities leading up to applying to the Honors College and, the high school activities you did, and just really what was the driving force for you in wanting to attend the Honors College?
Oh, absolutely. So I think that the most important thing about applying to Smittcamp is that everything is taken into context. So obviously, not only did I apply myself, but I've actually off and on and over the years been an application reader. And so what we look for is that people are taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to them. So while somebody might not have quite as many AP classes, for example, because their school doesn't offer them, or they might not have quite as many activities because of personal circumstances. That is something that application readers will often take into consideration. So for me personally, I had done some volunteering, at the hospital, for example. I had done some athletics. In high school, I did bowling, actually, for interestingly enough. And then academically, I had gone to a very small school. Basically, I guess I was a rambunctious elementary schooler, and my parents thought that I would do better in an environment with smaller class sizes, among other concerns. And so I went to a school that no longer exists, called at the time Northwest School here in Fresno. And so we didn't have things like AP classes, but I sought out on my own, actually did AP calculus with the assistance of some tutoring center here in town, as well as the school resources. And so my application on paper might not have been quite as impressive. Actually, I was waitlisted for that matter, probably because it wasn't as impressive as some of my classmates. But it's, I took 1 AP class when the school technically offered 0. I did do my fair share of activities, and I think that was taken into consideration, and I was pretty darn thrilled when they ended up taking me off the wait list. And I got into the Honors College. I was local to Fresno. I wanted to stay here, and the Honors College was just everything one could desire in an institution.
No, that's a great story, because I think, oftentimes past interviews have been with people who are coming from kind of big high schools with lots of different AP courses where they've been a different circumstance. And really the idea with the Honors College is to bring the best and brightest from all different aspects and Yeah, so I love that you shared your experience and your route to Fresno State, and being on the bowling team. So that's pretty unique. And yeah,
I mean, I enjoyed it even in Fresno State. So you can take bowling as a class, and so then you get to bowl for. I mean, it's part of your tuition, but you bowl for free weekly. And so I did that
yeah,
a couple semesters just for fun, but I haven't done any consistent bowling since I was at Fresno State. You know, the party here and there, and that's about it.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And so when you were in high school, did you know that you wanted to become a doctor?
So we have a number of physicians in my family, and so it was always a consideration. It wasn't necessarily the only thing that I wanted to do, but it was certainly well up there. And so I tried to keep an open mind, you know, see what else I might be interested in. But I did enjoy both the scientific as well as the humanistic aspects of medicine, and so I did end up pursuing medical school.
And why did you choose Fresno State and the Honors College ultimately?
Well, as I said, I'm local. I wanted to stay around here, and you know, I had thrown some other names of universities around, but particularly once I got into the honors college, I mean, that clinched it. Smittcamp not only was the, you know, the full tuition scholarship, but it's really the attention, the one on, you know, my brother went to UCLA. He, I actually had encouraged him to do Smittcamp instead, but he wanted to do a bigger place. And, you know, there you're in most of your gen ed classes, you're one kid of a couple hundred probably. And so he thrived, he did well. But at Smittcamp, you know, most of our gen ed honors classes were 25 of us, could be less. And I think that the quality of the education, I mean, you get with when a professor is able to have a lot of that one-on-one interaction or small group interactions, really is just excellent. And so between the degree of attention that you get, the other resources. I mean, at the time, there were all kinds of other perks. I think a number of them have gone away over the years. We got free laptops when I was a student. We got, was it parking passes? You know, God only knows what else. And I just thought that these were evidence of how much Smittcamp scholars were valued by the university.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go ahead and share a picture of your entering cohort. Um, and so can you just share a little bit about the event this was taken at?
Well, this was the welcome dinner. At the time, I believe the welcome dinner was at the president's house. It was President Welty then. I'm at the back, right underneath the wreath. I think I had like red eye or bright eye in that vision, so the devilish looking one with the mustache. It was just, it was an excellent, it was a welcome event. They took all 50 Smittcamp scholars. They invited our parents. We had a banquet on the lawn there. And it really just, again, made us just feel so welcome. The president of the university invited us and our parents to his house. I mean, this was just the beginning of my 4 years at Fresno State. You know, just amazes me to look at the picture. I still recognized just about everybody on there. You know, we can't say I keep in touch with every single one of them, but I absolutely, you know, I was just messaging a couple of them this morning. And it's just, you know, the friendships that we made, the amazing people that I shared my experiences with in the Honors College last a lifetime.
Great. Thanks for sharing and reflecting on that photo. Is there a specific memory that really stands out to you from your time in college?
There's so many. I think probably activity-wise, it was a fun one that at Fresno State had a quiz bowl team. So it used to be College Bowl. Then I guess College Bowl went out of business at some point, and so we went there. There's several other levels of tournament for Quiz Bowl, and so it was often, but not all of the members were Smittcamp scholars, but quite a number of them were Smitties. And so a couple of my friends were in there. I ended up joining. We would have trivia competitions with each other, and then a few times we would drive down to larger tournaments. We went down to UCLA a few times. And it was just a blast. We really just enjoyed. I've always enjoyed trivia. I still, through medical school, we did bar trivia, pub quiz periodically. I'd love to get back to that at some point when life is a little bit less hectic than it is now. And I think that those trips to LA for the trivia tournaments and just were absolutely a fun time.
Yeah. As you look back on your college experience, is there anything that you think like the honors college itself really created an opportunity that you would not have had otherwise?
Yes and no. So I think part of it is when you go to almost any professor at Fresno State, and they have research opportunities, they have sometimes internships, sometimes they're just looking for students to even TA sometimes, things along those lines. One thing that really helps make you stand out is if you say you're in Smittcamp. There's a couple hundred Smittcamp scholars on a campus, maybe 1% of the student population. And they know that at that point, you're somebody who absolutely could have gone to school anywhere, at any other university. Well, maybe not any other university, but practically so. And that as, you're hardworking, you're still in the honors college, and it will often help with that. So like I had done research with Dr. Attar. Is it only because I was a Smittcamp scholar? He wasn't director at the time, but I had done well in his class. I think we had a good relationship there, but it certainly didn't hurt. I had been active in, for example, I worked at a tutoring center. This is the same one where I'd been in high school, but half the employees were Smittcamp scholars. And so did that help me get the job? Well, I knew the guy. Probably didn't hurt though. Overall, I think it's one of those things where just about anyone in Smittcamp can probably get those opportunities because they're people who manage to get into Smittcamp. But knowing that they're scholars is kind of shorthand that it really helps put your name out there for opportunities both off and on campus.
That makes sense. And I think it goes back to probably the qualities that allowed you to be a competitive person to get into the program will continue to serve through life. And then it's also the community that you're exposed to and engaged with that will continue and grow because you're all, driven, like-minded individuals. So it's just bringing that community together so that way you continue to grow together, right? So that's good perspective. So you graduated with a double major. When did you decide that you wanted to add on the biology degree?
So, it's interesting. I think I actually came in undeclared, but I knew that I had probably wanted to be a physician. And looking at the sequence of classes that you have to do, basically, to apply to medical school, you needed at the time at least 1 year of biology or 2 years of chemistry. And 2 years of chemistry and a year of physics and some other things. And so I said, you know what, I don't know necessarily what I want to be my focus, but I'll start with the chemistry because that's the longest component of that. And I can always, start the biology the following year or the following semester, whichever it was. And so I started chemistry and I took general chemistry and I really enjoyed it. And I said, I could probably stand it and keep doing this. So I declared a chemistry BA. And interestingly enough, the chemistry BA was between the two chemistry focuses at the time. It had a number of biology classes built in. So, I was taking the chemistry classes, taking biology classes. And I said, yeah, I really like biology too. And I was taking way too many. I took from freshman to junior year, I think I took 19 to 24 units any given semester. So I said, that's fine. I'll add on the biology major. It was only like a half dozen extra classes. And so I ended up doing all of those as well. And it worked out very well. I had no trouble fitting them in, except that I was just very, very busy. And I think that I came into medical school very well prepared. And had certainly had a very good experience um, with the education that I got. So it was really just, I liked chemistry. I declared it. I like biology. I said, can I fit it in? I can. So I ended up declaring that too. And 4 years later, I had a degree.
So then you went to medical school. How did you decide what area of medicine you wanted to focus on?
Well, this was actually a fair bit more interesting. So I came into medical school and, not sure what specialty I wanted to do. In the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I think ER would be cool. They work shifts, they get lots of time off. It's high intensity. You get to see new stuff all the time. Maybe I'd watch too much ER on TV. And I said, okay, maybe I want to do emergency medicine. So I joined the emergency medicine interest group in medical school. I think I was like the secretary of the group or something. I had done a research project related to emergency medicine between my first and second year of medical school. And, I was really thinking strongly about applying to emergency medicine as I'm finishing up my second year. And you apply for specialties at the beginning of your fourth year. So third year of medical school is really you rotate through all of the base specialties that internal medicine, pediatrics, gynecology, et cetera, surgery. And you rotate through all the base specialties that make sure you get exposure and be a well-rounded physician. Well, I realized biggest problem with emergency medicine from my standpoint was I kind of always wanted to find out what the heck happened to the patient. So like you'd see somebody as an emergency medicine doctor, you either send them home or admit them to the hospital, and then you never find out what happened next. Versus on my internal medicine rotations, you followed along, if they're in the hospital, you follow them along from the beginning to the end of their hospitalization. And if you were in the clinic, you'd see them every few months or once or twice a year, and you would have that continuity. And I really liked the continuity, and so I decided emergency medicine was not for me. So I ended up going into internal medicine, and internal medicine is kind of a catch-all specialty for adults. We treat everything for adults. I did my internal medicine training here in Fresno. Half the time at CRMC, half the time at the VA, and it was phenomenal experience, but I knew that I wanted to specialize, and the reason that I wanted to specialize was I really could see myself being more of an expert in one condition at that point, really having that longitudinal relationship with the patient, being their doctor for next. And so deciding what to specialize in, there was quite a number of different fields in internal medicine that I liked, but I'd always enjoyed endocrinology, and endocrinology is basically all the medicine related to hormones and hormone producing glands. And, even going back to when I was taking, I think, what was it, comparative mammalian physiology when I was a biology major at Fresno State, the physiology that I really enjoyed was a lot of the hormone stuff, negative feedback loops. It's very elegant how the body controls a lot of these things. So that was true at Fresno State. That was true when I was a medical student. I enjoyed all the hormone related things, and I enjoyed the workflow that we got to do on our endocrinology rotations when I was a resident. Basically, a lot of the day-to-day endocrinology is management of things like diabetes, thyroid disease, yes, much of it is just, go take this medicine, you'll be better, but it's still significant counseling, giving people the tools to take care of themselves, helping them understand their disease. And I really felt drawn to that part, as you know, the discussions in endocrinology more than I did in other fields of internal medicine. And so I ended up applying to endocrinology. I had a great mentor here, Dr. Nang, who practices over at Clovis Community these days. And ended up getting into fellowship at the University of Illinois. Did my 2 years there, and been an endocrinologist ever since.
Great. And, we're in a time of just really transformational change in all areas, whether that be through AI or, just other areas impacting each profession. And I'm curious, in your tenure as an endocrinologist, what are some of the most rapid changes that you are seeing?
So honestly, it's probably going to be everything related to diabetes management. So for type 1 diabetes, we have a rapidly developing basically insulin pumps. And so, type 1 diabetes is where the body doesn't make any insulin in the long run. They have to administer insulin to live. And it's just a very mentally stressful disease. I don't have it myself, but I have many patients with it. I have friends with it. I have friends who have children with it. And the patients always have to be thinking about, what is my sugar? What direction is it going? How are my activities going to do it? What am I going to eat? How, estimating carbohydrate count, taking the insulin correctly. Am I going to go high? Am I going to go low? This, that, or the other. And it's just a significant mental burden. And these newer insulin pumps basically are starting to require less and less interaction from the patient. That they integrate with sensors, the continuous glucose monitors, and the pump will, on the fly, adjust insulin delivery based on what the trends in the blood sugar, and it's learning the patient kind of I'm not going to call it AI, but it's kind of like a black box algorithm sometimes. And so there's different companies, different ones on the market. I could talk about that all day, but I think it's very, very exciting, the role of those pumps for our patients with type 1 diabetes to reduce the mental burden. On the other hand, we have our patients with type 2 diabetes, and when I was in training, even 10 years ago when I was in residency, there was kind of this recommendation in the guidelines that oh, well, you start with metformin, which is one of the older drugs, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. We don't have any clear evidence of what drugs are better than other drugs. And in the intervening decade, we have now clear data. It's amazing that some of these newer drugs, like the shots like Ozempic or Mounjaro, or the pills like Jardiance or Farxiga, not only help people control their diabetes, but help people lose weight, reduce the risk of having a heart attack, improve the progression of kidney disease and liver disease and sleep apnea, heart failure, and God only knows what else. And so we're really finding evidence that with many of the tools that we have, that we can impact not only the major disease that we're focusing on as an endocrinologist, but their overall health and the other diseases that they may have. And there's not a ton new stuff coming out with like thyroid disease. We have some exciting stuff for thyroid cancer. Not a ton, some other limited new things in endocrinology and other fields, but that really affect very few people. But in diabetes, which is such a common condition, we have so many things that can really help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Right. Can you talk a little bit more about your decision to move back to Fresno in
Sure.
August?
Oh, absolutely. So, when I finished my training, at the time, I had been dating my wife. Well, when I was in fellowship, I'd been dating my wife for, I don't know, 8 years. And we had met in medical school, actually. And what we had decided was we got married. We got married. We were still long distance. So I was in Chicago at the time. She was living in Phoenix. And so she had 3 more years of training in gynecology, and we'd been long distance for 5 years at that point. And I said, no, I'm moving to Phoenix. So we worked in Phoenix for 3 years, and then My wife wanted to get some further experience in infertility, and so she found a clinic out in New Jersey that really let her get a lot of the experience that she wanted, and it was a pretty unique opportunity. And so we moved to New Jersey, and I worked there for 3 years while we were doing that. But I knew that I wanted to come back. I mean, big things with a reason coming back is, first of all, my family's still here. I have a number of friends in Fresno. We wanted to be closer to family when it comes to, our children, spending time with their grandparents, helping when needed. And I think that that's probably the biggest factor. We made friends when we were in New Jersey, but we didn't have anybody else, any family members out there. And the other was I knew that when I was working, first again in Arizona, then New Jersey, these were in private practice settings. I had just seeing patients. I had the occasional resident that might come by a few weeks here and there from the local program that wanted an experience in community endocrinology. It was not an academic practice. And I knew that I had always enjoyed medical education, giving back to training medical students and residents and fellows. And UCSF-Fresno, where I had done my residency originally, was hiring, and they had the opportunity to join an academic practice with residents and medical students, and they had just opened a fellowship. We're actually just in our second year of our fellowship here, so we're training endocrinology fellows. And I thought that it was just a perfect job opportunity, that it was a mix of a lot of clinical work. I still love seeing patients, but as well as the educational aspects. And so I moved back home, close to my family, getting a job with people that I like, doing what I want to do, everything lined up. And so we moved back to Fresno.
Yeah, that's great. So I think that's a great segue to talk about, your family a little bit. I'll go ahead and share a picture that you had provided to me. Go ahead and introduce us.
Yeah, so this is a picture from the recent Renaissance Fair at Kearney Park. And I thought that it was a nice one to share. Also, because it's hard. I'm usually the one taking the picture, so a picture with me in it is not the easiest thing to do. So that's my wife Megan on the left, and so she's, as I said, a gynecologist. She works at Kaiser. Also started in August, around the same time I started back here. Just general OBGYN, delivers babies a few days a month, spends a lot of time in clinic, and they're spinning up. She's going to be helping out with some of their limited infertility services at some point. She's just getting settled in. Then in the middle are my two kids. Sophia just turned 4. She's absolutely she's a pretty energetic child, and keeps us on our toes. And then her little brother Oliver is going to turn 2 in March, so he's 21 months old now, and or 20 months. I can't do math. I think 20 months. And he's just a sweetheart. I mean, these two are the light of my days. They keep a smile on my face, but they certainly keep us busy. And so, and then I'm the one dressed like a monk on the right. I think it was bright out that day, so I kept my sunglasses on. Probably would have been better to find a picture without them.
No, that's great. I appreciate you sharing, and the family event and outing at Kearney Park. That's great. Yeah. So I guess you've got a lot on your plate, right? Between new job and, they rank having a new job as getting one of the most stressful experiences one can have. And then you also have 2 littles, 4 and 2 to round. So what habits have you developed to help you manage stress? Because I'm guessing there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I think time management has always been difficult. I mean, even when I was in college, I had tons of classes on my plate, activities, quiz bowl, volunteering, research, whatever else. Going on to medical school's busy, residency's very busy, fellowship a little bit less than residency, but still keeps keeps you occupied. And I think that the most important thing is just prioritization. Find what's important to you, take care of that, and you always have to do kind of not just what's most important to you, but also weight that by when things are due. So if you have deadlines, if you have things that have to be done, then they have to go to the top of your list. And I think it helps me having a flexible partner. My wife, if I have to be working on a talk that I'm giving to the medical students tomorrow, and I need to stay a little bit late at work, my wife will pick up the kids. They might do dinner without me. I try to avoid that whenever possible. But it's being flexible. Part of the nice thing about being back in Fresno is the fact that my parents are here in town. So both my wife and I are very, very busy, and we need help. My parents can often assist with the kids. My daughter's she's 4. She's in gymnastics. So we does that once a week at the local little gymnastics studio down the road. And so we said, "Oh, well, how are we going to do that?" We pick her up from work, we feed her dinner, it's practically bedtime. Oh, my dad does it. He picks her up while my wife and I are still at work in the mid-afternoon, takes the girl to gymnastics, he does some bonding. So I think the nice thing is prioritization, taking into account deadlines, but really using the resources and having the help available is I think key. And if we didn't have that, it would be a lot harder. Not to say that it's easy.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely something to say for having that community support, whether that comes with family or other people. And it takes a village to, really optimize everyone's lives, right? So that way, because your father's life is being enriched with the time that he gets to spend with his granddaughter. And then similarly, you and your wife are able to thrive in your respective professions. So it's a win-win all around to have that support there. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that, and they feel like the weight of the world is on themselves instead of really leaning into that network that they do have available to them. And and it can be a win-win. It doesn't have to be to any individual's detriment. So that's great perspective. Yeah. So how do you, as you've grown in your career, how do you define success?
It's certainly not just money. There's lots of ways people can do that, and many people are successful without making a ton of money. I think it's making an impact on the people around you. And so, the folks that are most successful are those where they're doing something, whether that's a job, a volunteering experience, whether it's even online organization, where they're doing something that matters to them, that seems to make a difference for the people around them. I mean, I'm lucky, right? So I have a job that I've worked hard to get, that allows me to make a difference in people's lives, give them the tools to take care of themselves, hopefully, help them be healthy longer, or maybe even live longer. But I think that that alone isn't the reason that I would say that I'm being successful. It's also that I have a wonderful family. I'm raising 2 kids that I think are turning out to be pretty darn good. I'm able to help family members or friends if they need it, if they ask me for it. And I think being able to be flexible and help those around you is probably the mark of a successful person.
And I would add that I think also your return to the Fresno area and having that opportunity to develop future generations of medical professionals is probably also something that will be part of your legacy and enriching for you as an individual.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, it's every person that I treat is one person, right? So if I see a patient by myself, that patient gets better. Maybe they talk to their family members about some of the things that I taught them, and whatever else. But every person that I treat along with a resident, if they learn, or a fellow or a student or whoever else, if they learn something and they carry that forward to the future patients that they treat, it's a lot more of an impact than just me treating one individual person. So I think that, particularly in medicine, if you're just a clinician, that's how I worked for a few years, you certainly will make an impact. But if you're a clinician and an educator, or a clinician and a researcher, that will make an even larger impact. And we absolutely, there's a role for that for many of us. And I think that that's why we're working at UCSF-Fresno. We have that educational mission.
Great. Well, Leo, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I think, going back to the fact of the quality of education in the Honors College, and I just wanted to, I was thinking, preparing for this interview, what were the other big impacts that it had? And honestly, the general ed classes, the honors classes that were arranged for us through the Smittcamp Family Honors College, are probably things that I think about more often than general chemistry or biology or I'm sorry, Dr. Tar, organic chemistry. My very first semester as a freshman at Fresno State, I took two gen ed classes through Smittcamp. There was Humanities 10 Honors, which was the intro to humanities. Started with I think like of Gilgamesh and through Greek literature all the way I think practically to modern times, and that really helped put a lot of the things that we see in the world around us into context. The saying is that history never repeats itself, but it does rhyme. And so when I'm reading the news, the things that I learned there probably come to mind more than what I learned in organic chemistry. Similarly, the second class was it was like Natural Science 4. And what that was is that they titled it Science and Nonsense. Like, what the heck is science and nonsense? And it turned out that it was basically a class on logical reasoning going through pseudoscience. And so we went over not just like Bigfoot, but also things like famous scams from history, scientific discoveries that didn't actually happen, cold fusion, things like that. We even went over a little bit on homeopathy, which is very relevant as a physician. But they use that as a context to go through critical reasoning. And we learned all about logical fallacies and all kinds of things. And that critical reasoning has helped me be successful in every semester, every stage of education, all the way through residency and fellowship and into practice. When I'm reading something, I can put it in the context of the things that I learned in the Honors College at Fresno State. And so, people focus so much on their majors, but I think that there's other examples from other honors classes that I did, but all of them helped prepare me to be a well-rounded individual and help me put everything into context, not just through my education, but through my life beyond that.
Right. Yeah. And I think part of the power of those courses is that you are with approximately 25 of the Honors College other students. And so there is a lot of critical thinking and interesting discussion that happens when you do get that group together, specifically on topics that can really impact your overall perception of the world and how that and how you process that. So that's, a great observation. Do you have time now for some rapid fire questions?
Oh.
All right. So going to college days, what was your favorite course?
Ooh, okay. So this is a tough one. I loved that humanities honors 10 with Dr. Chapman. Probably, let's say, Uh, why don't we say, actually, I really enjoyed, I added on a couple Russian history courses that weren't necessary for any requirements for my majors or gen ed or anything else with Dr. Farrell in the history department, only because my family was from Russia and I really enjoyed it. So I would say probably those two Russian history courses, because I really learned a lot. There was one basically for everything before the 20th century and one for the 20th century. It really helped put a lot in context of everything going on there, and the potentially historical events that would have affected my own family.
That's great. And who was your favorite professor?
All right, so we'll go with science professors. Obviously, there's Dr. Attar. I really loved Fred Schreiber, who I took a couple evolution classes from in the biology department. And then non-science, I'll stick with Dr. Chapman, who taught that humanities 10 honors, and then Dr. Farrell with the Russian history. So I won't pick just one. I'll give you a few.
Yeah, you've got a few there. And did you have a favorite place to eat on campus?
On campus, probably just Taco Bell. I mean, though Panda Express was always pretty darn popular as well. I think that just the Taco Bell was my, I could go there every week. I shouldn't, so I don't.
Yeah, that's a luxury being a college-aged individual. And then anything you would have done differently?
Uh, it's a tough question. I mean, everything that I did made me the person that I am today. I think that, changing circumstances that I might not have gone to the same medical school, met my wife, had the same kids, I don't think I would do. But I think that the most important thing is keeping an open mind about goals. And I suppose that if the main thing I might have changed in college would be to try to be a little bit less busy academically. Between the double major, adding on extra classes, whether it's bowling or Russian history, whatever else. I mean, I think there was one semester I took 24 units. And that didn't give me quite as much time for activities, to expand my horizons as it might have otherwise done. And I think that, it's very important to focus on academics, but perhaps be, being a little bit more flexible with scheduling would have been beneficial to me. So, probably take an extra, spread out my classes a little bit more. My senior year, I think my very last semester, the 8th one, I think I only took 12 units because that's all I needed to do to graduate. And it was great. Particularly given at that point I'd already applied to medical school and my grades didn't matter. My grades were fine, but they didn't matter as much. So it was much less stressful, and I think I should have given myself a little bit more of that experience earlier on.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson that I think a lot of highly motivated individuals come to see in hindsight. So appreciate you sharing that. All right, so now moving to present day. What is something that your classmates would be surprised to hear you're doing now?
I think probably just how much of like how much domestic I am. I mean, like, for example, my newest hobby that I picked up is a couple of years ago I got a pellet grill, so it's smoking various cuts of meat. So I think anybody who knew me in college probably what guys sitting at home smoking meat like that. That's but I can make some mean brisket or burnt pork belly burnt ends is probably my favorite. And I think that just as settling down as I've gotten older, maybe not everybody settles down as they get older, but I think that's probably the biggest difference.
And so what's the most exciting thing in your life right now?
Oh, my kids. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no question about that. They definitely. I mean, my son's at that age where he's quickly, expanding his vocabulary, and every day is surprised what he's learning. My daughter, I'm always amazed at things that she figures out how to do on her own. I think that this is probably any age they're surprising, but I think that's the most exciting thing for me. A new job, it's great. I enjoy that, but I think definitely my kids.
Great. And then what book are you reading?
So I mean, I primarily read fiction. Well, I can't say that. articles, things, online. I read the newspaper every day. But if we're talking about books, I primarily read fiction. I've been a big fan of Brandon Sanderson since I was in college. When he was tapped to finish Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, and he just came out with a new book, the fifth book in his Stormlight archive. It's called Wind and Truth. So I'm working on that. It's like 1,000 pages long, so it's going to take me forever to read it. But I absolutely, am loving it so far. And I read a lot of, I have Kindle Unlimited, so I read a lot of, trashy, computer game, RPG, like based novels or whatever, just a popcorn fiction sort of thing.
Got it. Is there a certain book you've read multiple times or have gifted to others?
All right, so let's see. I'll say two here. So for fiction-wise, what I've gifted to others, there's a book that was published in the 70s called House of God. And what it is, it's basically somebody writing about his intern year doing medicine right around I think it was right when Watergate was happening. So it's set in 74. It might not have been published in the 70s, actually, now I'm thinking about it. It's very, very irreverent and sexist, and you have to take it into the context of where it is, but it's absolutely hilarious. It's basically like if you ever watched the TV show Scrubs, many of the more funnier scenes or characters are directly lifted from House of God. And so I had given it to several people when I was in medical school. Friends, family members that went to medical school. I last gave my copy to my wife when we had first started dating. I haven't seen it since then. It's probably in a box somewhere. And so that would probably be fiction, but again, you have to read it in the context of the time that it was written. Then nonfiction, I'll say a book that I've reread a couple times and I've recommended other people. So when I did honors social psych at Fresno State, one of our readings was a book called The Spear Catches You and You Fall Down. And it's about a little Hmong girl that was here locally. I think she was in Merced, that had epilepsy, and the struggles of her family's interactions with the medical system, both language barriers, cultural barriers, and that it mixes in a lot of information about the history of Hmong people, both in Asia as well as in the United States. And we actually were assigned that again when I was in my medical ethics course in medical school. And I've read it outside of class as well. And I think that it's an absolutely like eye-opening just to see the interactions that this family and this poor child had, and the importance of cultural competency in medicine. And so one, is kind of the satirical, the House of God is the kind of the satirical look at medicine, and the other one is just a more serious one. And I think that they're both books that are anybody in medical training would probably benefit from, or well, the one they might just enjoy, but would benefit from reading.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And then final, one piece of advice you would give to college students.
That one is absolutely keep an open mind. Again, I ended up in endocrinology. I wanted to do emergency medicine. I told you that story. I have friends of mine who came in that were pre-meds, and a lot of people come to college as pre-med, and then they maybe they didn't do so well in a class and they decided to change their mind. Maybe they were still doing great, but they came across something else that just seemed really interesting. And so they ended up working in food science, or they ended up working in, computer engineering or whatever else. And I think that don't be married to any particular career from day one. If you find something that you enjoy, you can it's rarely too late to pivot. And I think keeping an open mind is the most important thing. It's probably a stereotypical piece of advice, but it doesn't mean that it's any less true.
Right. No, and I think what was one of the most reassuring conversations I had was when I was in the honors college. I was meeting with some philanthropic individuals with the university. It was at a dinner hosted at the university president's house. And one of the individuals was maybe in her 50s. And she said, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. And that's just a huge relief, because coming into college, you're expected to declare a major, choose the path that you're going to be on for much of your life. And then just to know that life takes lots of turns. So embracing that, being open to that, I think is a really important piece to just enjoying the path that life presents. So great advice. Yeah. All right. Well, Leo, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate you sharing your journey and perspective to students who are trying to figure out and put into context, what the future may hold for themselves. So thank you for paying it forward by sharing your personal experience.
Absolute pleasure. And I think that, I am the person I am today because of the experiences that made me, including, very importantly, those in the Smittcamp Family Honors College. And I'm happy to pay that forward. I'm happy I was invited to have this conversation. And I, hope to anybody listening that, they find the right career and the right path for them moving forward, so that they can be successful and make a difference for the people around themselves.
Great. All right. Thank you, Dr. Vydro. Appreciate your time.